Greetings. On this week's episode, I interview teaching and visual artist Marium Rana. Check it out. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the celebration. As you know, this is my year of courage. We know you could be any worse, so the fact you're here today is the absolute world to me. And I'm not alone. I have an amazing guest. She goes by the name of Marium Rana. How's it going, Marium?
It's going really well. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Do you mind if I introduce the folks to you?
Sure. I would love to hear about them.
Okay, cool. Marium is an American-born Pakistani visual artist who works primarily in ink and, how do you say this word again?
Aqueous media.
Aqueous media. We're going to learn more about what that is. She is a graduate from Florida State University, where she received a Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Studio Art in 2013 and a Master's in Art Education in 2014. Marium has curated numerous art exhibitions, held solo exhibitions, and exhibited throughout the United States. When she's not painting, she has served as the design chair for TEDxFSU and presented her research at symposiums. She's currently teaching fine art and art history in Tampa, Florida. How'd I do?
Really good. That sounds just about right.
What's some of the stuff that a bio can't capture? What did we miss? If you really knew me, you would know that.
Well, I would say that I guess like there are so many things about being an artist that I am just very stereotypically. I'm a scatterbrained person. Just even in setting up this web chat, right? It didn't work on one computer, and we definitely tried that for like 40 minutes until we just decided to use another device. So I don't like to give up on things. I like to keep going, and I like to try my best. And I guess that shows through with my paintings because it takes dedication to complete one work of art. You see all the meticulous detail. So.
Yes, indeed. And folks, we want to ask your forgiveness in advance. It's Ramadan. So if either of us have a fasting moment where we're like, we want more than forgive us, say a little prayer for us.
Please.
Let's jump to that you said you don't give up, that you stick to things.
Yeah.
What's a time where maybe you had an obstacle in your way or there was something that you had to deploy that characteristic that you have?
Let's see. So last summer I had a artist residency in Joshua Tree, California. So about 2 hours from where you are in LA.
Yep.
And so I actually didn't know what Joshua Tree was. And I applied for this residency and I looked at pictures online and I'm like, that's probably like one person's backyard in this like random city, right? Like there's no way this entire place looks like this. Like that's not that. I didn't really tell anyone that I knew that I got this opportunity or that I had applied. And so I kind of had to like slowly kind of like come out to everyone that I knew that I was going to do this, right? For like my 2 months, right? 7 weeks in California. And I was going to live on my own in this cabin. So I was apprehensive, but I went ahead and I said, yes, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to live on my own. I'm going to try this place out. And so surely when I got there, I was driving from LAX and I arrived and it was nighttime and I felt like I'd reached the end of the world. No lights anywhere. I kept driving and I'm like, how is this possible, right? I'm like, how can there be so many mountains coming from like a very flat land like Florida? And, prior to that, Long Island. I was amazed. So no matter how many doubts, I guess everyone around me and my loved ones like may have put in my head that like this is really not the best thing you could do, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it because about 50 153 people. I think it was 153 people. They applied for this. And I hope that my numbers are right. And only 4 people got the grant. So
Wow.
I was one of 2 painters that got the grant. And so it was really an honor, you know, to have someone that invested in your art. And I felt that gratitude needs to be shown by accepting the blessings that are in your life.
Yes.
So I thought that, like, you know, this is a clear path that I wasn't going to do Ramadan in like the typical community setting that I normally do this in. I was going to be very much alone, fasting in like 120-degree weather, and it was going to be awesome. So I felt like that perseverance has definitely made me more equipped for anything else that has happened in my life thus far.
I'm glad that we set the record straight early, that on this interview, we got a badass with us. Awesome.
Where are they? Is there a third person on this call?
Let's take it back. Origin story time. How did you get the art bug bite?
Do you want the real answer?
Yeah. No, lie to us.
All right, that might be harder than the real answer.
Yeah,
so,
make up an answer and tell us the real answer, and then I'll try to guess which one's the truth.
So you know how like Spider-Man just gets bitten by a spider? So yeah. I got bitten by I don't know, a sugar glider.
This one's the truth. I can already tell. What's a sugar glider?
Wait, you don't know what a sugar glider is?
No. Sounds delicious. Sounds like a drink.
Oh my God. Okay, you know those flying squirrels that are like tiny?
I think so. I can
That
picture
is a sugar. I knew someone who had one and kept it in her pocket, right? What? So those tiny animals.
How did she train it to stay in her pocket?
It's just a thing, I guess, you know, just like how cats hiss at you. I don't know.
This is in Florida?
Yeah, in Florida. So it's just tiny. It's like a tiny bat, and they're called sugar gliders. They're flying bats. Like, I mean, not to insinuate that all bats don't fly, but
okay, I'm glad we went into this. What's the real reason now that we've gotten the not real reason?
Yeah, okay. So and maybe like sugar gliders sound like less delicious and like more I mean, you know, this is taking a turn towards PETA, so we have to like let's not get political.
It's because we're fasting. We're like, anything sounds good. Sugar.
Yeah, true. So the real reason is that basically I was really good at drawing cartoon characters as a child. So, you know, like those Nickelodeon shows.
Yes.
I felt a very deep connection to Angelica from Rugrats.
There we go.
So I had all of this Rugrats merchandise when I first went to school. And I wanted to just, you know, draw the characters that I saw on TV. I was really into it. I drew, like, my brothers were really into Spawn and all of these like comic book characters, and I draw them too. And I feel like I had a lot of external validation as a child. And then I took that, you know, like the encouragement from my teachers and my parents and my siblings, and I just kind of kept going with art. And I really, like, everything that I used to do in my free time was color and draw. And so that was my preferred thing to do. And it just never left me. And it became a lifestyle. And so from kindergarten, actually, I knew that I wanted to be an art teacher.
Wow. Oh, teacher.
Yeah, and an artist. So I would say both. And then I had an existential crisis in about 12th grade when I really had to decide what I wanted to do, and I applied to every college as undecided. And then when I got to FSU, I said, okay, I'm going to do interior design. And when I went to orientation as interior design, I saw all of the art students and I'm like, I cannot watch other people achieve the dream that I wanted and not be part of it. So I couldn't sleep that night.
The night between when you were in interior design and you saw the art students?
Yeah. I was like, that's not right. That's not me. Like I want to do art and I was always kind of like encouraged to go in a more stable route, stable being what maybe like someone else might consider stable financially and just business wise. And so honestly, being an artist, you realize that you do need those skills. You do. And like you get it through experience, through things that like didn't work out, and you kind of realize, okay, like this is the way that I will, go through this dilemma or this problem. So it's always been necessary to have, I guess, like real life experiences in the middle of this. It's not a detachment from reality, as I think a lot of times it is portrayed.
As long as what is portrayed?
A life in the arts.
What's the stereotype that it's portrayed as?
I think what I used to believe that it would be and what others around me used to think it would be is that you would be like a starving artist, right? That if you follow your passion and you follow your dreams, you're disconnected from reality and you are always sitting in a room making art. And you're waiting for that one person who's like, aha, that's exactly what I want. That's the painting, and now you're going to get gallery representation. And if you go to Art Basel, that's it, you've made it, and then when you go to Art Basel in the real world, you realize there are so many paintings there. And you also kind of realize that your students might be more versed on conceptual artwork than some of the stuff that is there. So it is very interesting. I think like making it looks very different in a lot of people's eyes, and we can't really be blinded by what the I guess like what the status quo is.
Yeah. How did you define for yourself what making it is?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Just one time, that's it.
Okay, so how did you decide for yourself what made you do that?
How did you decide for yourself what success is?
Okay, so I think that success is being content with yourself. If there's not a problem, to keep riding the wave and going with what's happening. And if there's something that is distressing you and holding you down, either you let go or you figure out how to lift that up with you. So I think success comes from inner peace, and it comes from not living a life only for yourself. Because when you live a life only for yourself, it gets old really fast. And then you also realize that when you live that life, it's empty. So I think that we all have those moments where we're like, this product or this thing is going to get me success and that is going to get me happiness. But community can be your happiness, and I think that is a really like Eastern way, like to stereotype, right, of thinking, because community is really essential. But with America, we have so many ideas of like individuality. If I have an iPhone, it has to have this feature, or it has to have something that is different than others. If I have a Instagram account, I have to go to a place that is beautiful so that I can show people that that is what I have, And so individuality is really stressed, I guess, like in all of the things that we have, like in this pond of people, everyone wants to be chosen. And I guess you just kind of have to think about what the choosing hand is.
Dang, that's deep. Oh, side disclaimer, I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but we don't talk bad about America on this podcast.
Okay.
Just playing.
Okay, I was like, what? All right.
It's an American Pride podcast. The intro is literally the national anthem, and all of my listeners stand up during it. So that last part's not going to go over well.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I guess we can't see it because it's cropped, but are you wearing like American flag, like shorts? Like,
yep, American flag shorts.
Yeah.
Bald eagle shoulder tattoo.
Yeah, definitely. We have, I don't know if you saw this in your time living in Tampa, but isn't the like largest Confederate flag flying in Brandon?
Yep.
So, so definitely interesting. I think someone told me that it was the largest Confederate flag in the world. And then I was like, who else in any other part of the world would care about a Confederate flag? And I'm like, but that is still to its name.
In the world.
Yeah.
Somewhere in Denmark trying to compete.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? It's pride. It's heritage, not racism.
I'm sorry, I keep derailing us. I once again, the fasting makes me goofy. You have these really great points, and I derail them. I'm a horrible interviewer. But I like what you were saying, trying to figure out what the guiding hand is, or what's the hand that's going to pick from all of the messaging we're receiving, what success is.
Yeah.
But a lot of what you're talking about is going against the conditioning and the socialization from our overall American culture, but also from our smaller cultures, like our families and the communities we live in. Sounds like a lot of what you're saying is going against the status quo.
I guess so. I mean, I guess, like, from a young age, I just realized that I think a little bit differently, try to think with empathy as opposed to like myself, like living for myself. Like, of course we all need to be self-sustaining, but I just am not all about that. I think that if making it on my own was something that was important, I don't know. I just feel that I'd feel like it would be a very lonely existence. So I think loneliness is not about how many people are around you. It's about how you think. So if you feel alone, then you are alone, but if you realize that there are people who love you and care about you just as you care about others, then you are truly not ever alone.
So this kind of reminds me a little bit of, I was looking at some of the work that you do, and one of them's called A Place to Call Home. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit about that project?
Sure. So A Place to Call Home is a series of paintings that are imagined places. So they're based off of places that I've lived, stories that my parents have told me of Pakistan, and the places that I visited. And so I want to take that and make these surreal landscapes that are just, they're not grounded in any reality that we know. It's a very intentional thing to not have any human representation or any life, as opposed to foliage and anything that grows. Like, that exists, but I think the moment you introduce a human element or a animal into a painting, it becomes very much about them, that they are the subject matter. But the subject matter in my paintings are these places, and more importantly than that, how these places are making you feel. So what is being evoked by the viewer is my intent.
Take us back to, where were you when the idea was first born? Were you on a walk? Were you on a helicopter? Where were you?
Well, A Place to Call Home. I think it is something that has always been inside. It's something that I've always been kind of thinking about, where my parents are from Lahore, Pakistan, and I've only gone a couple of times. I went when I was 9 years old, and then I went again when I was 20. I was about 20 years old, and I got a research grant from Florida State University. And I got to study there for 2 months in the summer. and I worked with a miniature painting professor there. And so I wanted to preserve the Mughal miniature painting tradition that I saw, like the Persian miniatures. And I wanted to do that, but I realized, there's something in me that also wants to make my own art. So how do I honor tradition and then also keep doing what I want to do that is contemporary? So I always had these ideas of like what these places look like. Before I went to school, like as a really little kid, I had 2 older brothers, like still have them. So alhamdulillah. Yeah, that means thank God. So I have 2 older brothers, and they went to school, and my mom would take them. And I was really fascinated by the idea of school. I thought that the schools were filled with like animals and like just like all these beautiful jungle plants, and just it was chaos, right? The animals ate with you at lunchtime.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, that's the reality. That's what I really believed in, right? And when I came to school, I was very disappointed.
Yes.
Very disappointed. So I think that I had always been imagining something beyond what is here in our like real like plane. And so I wanted to start making these places and stop asking permission to do it. So I think with art school, a lot of times, like, you get a lot of guidance. So you start to doubt your intuition. And so I learned to tap into that when I went and I studied miniature painting. And I felt like there was something wrong with me for a while because I did not want to do portraiture. I was not interested in what is traditionally like European art. So when my painting professors started to introduce me to Eastern art and they started to introduce me to Persian miniatures, I was really fascinated by that. But more than like the people in the center, I was fascinated by how plants were drawn. I was fascinated by how rivers flowed, how there were hills. And so I wanted to incorporate that into my art style, yet honor and respect what was there before. But know that I'm not just emulating it and making something that's kitsch. I wanted to make something that was unique and couldn't be described by words. You have to see it with your eyes.
Yes. What's kitsch?
So kitsch is, and I mentioned Hello Kitty because I'm like a Uber fan,
Hey.
So Hello Kitty is considered kitsch, right? Something that is a mass-produced image that doesn't necessarily for everyone have like this value, right? So maybe like in the 90s, like The Simpsons, like Bart Simpson stuff. And some people could consider Keith Haring kitsch, that artist. And I don't know, SpongeBob, anything that is just mass produced and might in the public lose its authenticity. So Coca-Cola products, maybe that was the intention of Andy Warhol when he made the Campbell soup cans, to show that our mass production and mass consumption was kitsch, right? So these things were brought into our attention again. So Barbie, things of that nature.
My partner was in New Zealand and was at a museum, and they were talking about, for The Rock's character on Moana, the tattoos that they have on him. Have you heard this story?
No.
Okay. Now they really researched to make sure that the tattoos they put on him were legitimate tattoos that someone would have if they were indigenous and were a part of that culture and stuff like that. And they were really, really special and sacred. So then when they started with the idea, it was all good. But then when they mass produce it, like they have that image on, like paper towels and napkins. You're not using something that's sacred to wipe up dirt and stuff.
Right.
Mass production of it ruins that sacredness. How do you think that when you start to bring culture into art and cross-pollinate culture, how does that interact with the viewer? How does it change as you give it new life? What are your thoughts on that?
So I will never forget this one thing that happened to me in undergrad. So there was this one girl who saw one of my paintings, and so I drew And I painted this picture of a truck, and it was on sari fabric, and it was during the time of this really large flood that had happened in Pakistan, and we were raising funds for it, and it was just something that was really eminent in my life and in my thoughts at that time. So it had mirrors in it, and it was very bright. There's a lot of shine and sparkle and just what is typical of my artwork. So this girl came into my studio space. Like, we would have studio tours in FSU constantly, like once a month. And so this girl came and she said she's really interested in finding out who the artist is. She really wanted to purchase this work of art. So she had told numerous people that whenever I came by, she wants to make sure that she met me because I was floating around and not just standing there. So eventually she did find me, and she was instantly turned off.
Wow.
So she did not want to buy that painting anymore. She really didn't even want to hear what I had to say about it. So to hear that she had like so much vigor and excitement for the work of art before, and then when she saw me, it just made me feel so strange about it. Like, it made me feel like this person felt an ownership and a connection to my work of art that was not associated with me. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, this is exactly what I've always wanted. I've always wanted people to identify more with the work of art than they do with me. But it was just such an extreme to see that, like, she did not have, I guess, the interest in hearing what I had to say. That, I guess, it's kind of like when your favorite songwriter tells you what the lyrics are about, you kind of lose a little bit of like what you thought the reality was. So I let her down in a way that I didn't expect to. And I thought that that was a really interesting pivotal moment. And then I've always strived to have people not necessarily see me as a product of my artwork, but kind of like detach it enough and be able to communicate with me about other things as well. So I'm grateful for that experience because I think it was very humbling.
Some of us might be listening though and thinking that, was she like that because she was racist?
Oh yeah. I mean, I mean, that's my assumption, right?
But
I want to know why, you know, like I'm so used to, unfortunately, encountering people who see me and have a little bit of hesitation, right? That, or have some presumptions about what I know. So I was talking to my friend Samira Albaid the other day, and so she was telling it was actually really funny. We were sitting down, we were having dinner, and so she was saying that people know Christianity, they make up things about Islam, and they know nothing about Judaism. And I was thinking that is very true. Like, I think that people have a lot of ideas of what this means, you know, of what my existence is, as opposed to what I have to say. So it's almost like an ownership over my identity more than what I have to say about it, which is, I guess, like your modern day colonialism in a very small, microaggressive way. But I mean, I think that the solution is to not stop, to just keep going, you know, if my presence in your space makes you uncomfortable, then don't question my presence. Question why it makes you uncomfortable.
That was so on point. You have so many good quotes in this. You know, the majority of people are going to be listening to this, not watching, even though we spent 3 hours setting up the visual. So you said
we're horribly vain people.
I know I am, but all my friends know. To know me is to know I shamelessly self-promote. But you had, when you were talking, you said, you know, when they see this, what were you referencing for the people who can't see you?
Well, I was referencing my headscarf. So I wear a scarf whenever I exist, you know, whenever I go out. And so I think that that is something that it's interesting to me because when I hear about people being very surprised that a Muslim woman does this or a Muslim woman does that, it's like, did you feel like my headscarf like wraps around my whole body and like, you know, like doesn't let me do anything? Like that's not what it is. It's not a symbol of oppression in my life and in, excuse me, my understanding. So I miss the days when people didn't know what Muslim was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that was really something different when people didn't know what Pakistan was, because to see it on the media as a child and try to also understand why I love it so much felt so, just felt like battling two different worlds. And so that's really where A Place to Call Home exists, in that like liminality between these two different places.
Mm. What does it feel like when you're all that's going on inside of you that you just explained, and then you bring it from the inside onto canvas? What's the, and not the end result feeling, what does it feel like as you're doing it?
As I'm doing it, I'm usually listening to like some kind of music, you know, like I'm existing in this place where I feel an immense amount of solitude. And I am a very social person, but then I also like to have time to myself. Like I like to come home from like a party and decompress and sit down and think about why things are the way that they are. You know, I'm not opposed to being alone and like finding that alone time for myself to produce art. So I guess I'm thinking about my relation to the rest of the world, but it's my existence, right? I can't ever like detach myself from that. So I guess like my thoughts aren't that heavy. Like I'm more just like doing what I feel like I want to do. Like the thing that's very cool is that people are invested enough in what I'm doing to support it. And sometimes make me feel like I can't make mistakes, but I'm the filter. I'm the person who goes in there and says, no, like there is something wrong with this painting in my head, or I could always do better. So I constantly push myself to do works of art that I tell myself I wasn't able to do. So I really like to challenge myself. And I guess it's that whole like not giving up thing.
What do you listen to as you're creating art?
So I'm really into rock music. Like I like going to shows. It's super fun. So I actually, when I heard that Chester Bennington passed away, right, I went through like all of my Linkin Park CDs and I was listening to Linkin Park so much. And now Mike Shinoda is coming out with like some new music, so I'm listening to his stuff. I've been listening to, well, my favorite band of all time is AFI, if anyone has known me. After 12 years old, like I'm obsessed with them. Like I follow everything that they do. They're really an important band in my life. I listen to 80s pop. So Joy Division is like 70s, but I listen to Joy Division. I listen to The Smiths. I listen to The Cure, and I'm really into that. Depeche Mode. So that's my music. I really like that. I listen to and have been to a lot of Tegan and Sarah concerts with my friend Catherine. So I love that. I love that art form as well.
When AFI's album got promo from MTV, how did you feel?
Really excited because to be honest, that's how I found them.
Okay.
I had a TV in my room and I saw Girls Not Grey and I was just like, who is that? You know? And I bought their CD immediately. Like before that, my CDs were like Spice Girls and Linkin Park. I thought it was really badass for liking Linkin Park. Yeah, so I was really into, you know, just like what a lot of little kids were into in the 90s, like Spice Girls and NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Christina Aguilera, all of that.
And then you discovered.
If I changed that.
We were so mad. Me and my friends were like, no, why are they on MTV?
Are you serious? No, but like I went backwards, right? I'm like, how do I find more of their stuff? And then I bought like, Black Sails in the Sunset. I bought like all of these CDs and joined the Despair faction.
I want a mohawk, but mom won't let me get one.
Yeah. Whoa, you are like, the old AFI. Yeah. And like their love of the Misfits, covering Misfits songs. So that was cool. And then that was like my gateway to like, listening to things like Velvet Revolver, A Perfect Circle, Tool, So I got really into that. And recently a friend of mine gave me all of these CDs that she had when she was growing up. So I have like all of these CDs from like Bush and Stone Temple Pilots and Red Hot Chili Peppers and just stuff that I was always into, but I never like went out and got necessarily. So I've been listening to a lot of No Doubt. Gwen Stefani I love Gwen Stefani. So yeah, my music range, like it differs. I love some Taylor Swift stuff. I don't know. I just listen to a lot of music, and I like to actually watch documentaries a lot. Specifically, if you were to ask me documentaries about cults, I don't know why, but I really like, that's what I'm doing when I'm painting. That's what I'm into. So that and Parks and Recreation.
There you go.
Stuff like that.
I'm always so excited when I see someone from Parks and Recreation get other acting gigs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, they're from Parks.
I just saw The Avengers, right? Like the third movie.
No,
and I haven't. Oh no. Well, I have never seen any other Avengers movie. So I guess like everyone else is really excited about this movie, and I just kind of like woke up and walked into it, I guess. But yeah, I was like, oh, it's Chris Pratt. And then I'm like, what's the history behind like this nut? My brother was next to me explaining things, and he's like, you actually are able to like, understand what's going on. I'm like, yeah, I mean, context clues, I guess.
So you've never seen Guardians of the Galaxy?
No, I haven't. I've seen Iron Man, and that's it. And I just watched Spider-Man, like Homecoming.
Whoa. Hang on. We might need to edit this part out. You haven't seen Black Panther yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh. You need to end this interview. You need to go.
And go watch it. Yeah.
How did you not see it?
I know. I definitely asked a friend to go watch it, and she was like, it's too hype right now. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'll watch it eventually. So I guess like I've also had like a couple of events going on with my art and with teaching, and just kind of let it like slide by.
Yeah. Oh, we had Adora's mom literally get us custom made clothes from Nigeria for the opening day.
What? That's so funny.
Okay, you should check out Guardians of the Galaxy because it has Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
You remember in Parks and Rec where
Johnny Karate.
Yes, and he came back from one of the seasons, and they were like, they made a joke about how he lost so much weight. Do you remember this? It was at the beginning of like, I think this season where they went to London or something like that.
Okay.
Well, they did that because he got the Guardians of the Galaxy and he lost that.
So funny.
Yeah.
I do remember him losing weight. Yeah. My favorite character was the guy who's always like, Ann Perkins.
Exactly. Chris
that
Lowe,
actor. What?
Chris Lowe?
Yeah, Chris Lowe. Rob Lowe, yeah.
And he was just in Reno 911, Super Troopers 2. I was like, oh, Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
He's always so positive.
Yeah, that guy. Like I definitely feel like I could be him at moments.
Yes.
I have my moments where I'm super enthusiastic. My good friends call me a ray of sunshine.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you might have heard me say at the beginning that this is my year of courage.
Yes.
And so I'm curious to have conversations with everyday people about what courage looks like in their life.
People that aren't very special, just like,
Well, people think
everyday people.
Like the only perception of courage we have is like firefighters, which are courageous, or like stepping in front of a bullet, these really dramatic things that are courage. But I think that there's more nuanced courage that all of us experience every day.
Yeah.
So what is courage to you?
I think courage is the ability to grieve when you need to grieve, and to know that everything that is difficult must come to an end, and everything that is good must also come to an end, right? So sometimes caring does not mean holding on too tightly, that you're also going down with the anchor. Mm-hmm. So courage is the ability to know that you can be wrong, and that to hold on to what you believe is right too tightly will have the opposite effect. You will lose what you hold on to too tightly. So I think that courage is the ability to understand that. And courage is the ability to let things in that you did not expect. So it's to show gratitude even when you are hurting.
Dang. Dang. We're going to have to do an interview part 2.
I'll be here waiting.
And we'll know how to do the video.
Yeah. We'll know how.
Do you have any courage role models?
Well, I think I'll give a very cliche answer of my family and my mother. I think about how my parents came to this country and they didn't really know what to expect, but they took that chance. So I think that is really, really fantastic. And there are just people in my life that I work with that are going through their own set of challenges. And I see that they wake up, they do their job, they're beautiful, caring individuals, and they put the students before them. So I don't know that we've mentioned this completely yet, but I am a art teacher and I teach kindergarten through 12th grade. And so essentially most of my day goes towards, the needs of others. And so I see that people who have their own children and their own lives don't get stuck in that. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate women who take their roles as mothers and as people that are just contributing to society, and they do that, and they do so much justice to that, and they achieve all of these goals. So often when I see someone doing something that is unconventional, I think that is really amazing and courageous. To not care what people have to say about you and think about you, that takes an immense amount of courage. So I remember when I used to go to FSU, actually, there was this elderly Indian woman, and she used to go to classes, and so she wore a sari, and then she wore these big sneakers. And that always made me so happy. And she was always walking very fast, she had somewhere to go, And I love that. And she had her books in her hand, but she was elderly. And I think that doesn't go, that would not be your college brochure model, but that is the reality of working hard and a life of dedication. So I think that is very important.
What is the reward for being courageous?
Well, there's so many layers to that question, right? Individualistic reward, the ability to sleep at night, the ability to not fight against things you can't control. So to have inner peace, I think, is a reward in itself. To afford time to the things that need it the most, my art can't live and breathe without me creating it and me taking care of it as well, So I think that if I were to dive too deeply into grief, or to realize that, or I guess to try to realize that something is out of my control and I need to hold on to it, and I need to have, this is all experience that I speak from, but I need to have it to appreciate it. That's one thing that I always teach my students. Sometimes we make art and it is ephemeral and it's going to go away. And I'm it's about the process not the product.
Exactly.
That's what art education is.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
You just spoke to my soul. So where can folks reach out to you and tell you how amazing you are and view your work and share their gratitude for the gems that you dropped during this interview?
Well, I appreciate that even anyone would want that. Like that is really cool. I love hearing feedback. I love hearing what my artwork means to others. And I have a website. It's my first and last name, so mariumrana.com. And you can shoot me a message and it goes to my email, or you could find me on Facebook under Marium Rana, visual artist. I have an artist page and also my Instagram. You can find me on there. Just look for my name, and that is where you can do that. Also in Tampa, if you're local, you can always come out to one of our shows. So I try to list everything that we're involved with at the time and try to share that.
Dope. For folks who are on the go, driving on a moped, surfing on a dinosaur, fighting a shark, and listening to this podcast at the same time, don't worry. We have all the show notes at tomrell.com/Marium, MARIUM, tomrell.com/Marium. Marium, just wanted to thank you so much for this amazing opportunity to sit down with you, learn a little bit more about your story and your art, and would love to have you back again so we can do a part 2. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, perfect. So I always like people to conclude with, what is your invitation to the celebration audience? What would you like to invite them to consider, to do, to ask themselves? What's your invitation?
I guess one question that I would ask the audience to have is to not worry so much about what the artwork means to the artist that made it, but think about how you can apply it to your life and your experiences, how you can add to what you see in front of you. So your individual perspective is valuable and is important and doesn't need to be validated by what the artist initially intended. So a place to call home for me could be about my cross-cultural identity, but for you, it could have a very different meaning. So don't let anything that we've said today take away from your visual experience and what you truly believe when you look at it.
Exactly. Very well said. Marium, once again, thank you so much. I hope you have a blessed rest of your Ramadan. And anything you need, let us know, because both myself and my audience, we got your back.
Thank you so much. And I truly believe that. Thank you.
My pleasure. And to all those listening, we're wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you.
One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomrell.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.